My wife cheated, mocked me in front of her friends, and lost everything the moment I took back control. The evening had started like any other, just another dinner gathering where Carla insisted I tag along. I knew the routine: smile, nod when necessary, let them talk over me, and quietly accept my role as the invisible man in Carla's carefully curated world. But I hadn't expected this. The red wine splashed across my face before I even saw Carla move. Warm and sticky, it ran down my cheek, soaking my collar and shirt. For a moment, the background noise of the restaurant seemed to vanish, replaced by a deafening silence as everyone froze, everyone but Carla. Her laughter cut through the quiet. It wasn't nervous, and it definitely wasn't apologetic. It was sharp, cruel, full of deliberate mockery. "Why are you always acting like such an idiot?" she sneered, lazily tipping the wine glass in her hand as if debating whether to toss the rest. Around the table, her friends erupted into laughter. Some stifled their giggles behind napkins. Others exchanged awkward glances, torn between discomfort and loyalty. A few looked uneasy but said nothing. None of them would dare stand against Carla. I sat there, wine dripping from my face, the acidic smell filling my senses. Every instinct screamed at me to react, to defend myself, to throw the damn wine back at her. But I didn't. Instead, I reached for a napkin, dabbing my face with a slow, measured calm. The sting of humiliation burned hotter than the wine itself. This wasn't the first time Carla had humiliated me in public. Not by a long shot. But tonight felt different. Final. There was no mask left, no pretending. She enjoyed this. All eyes were on me, waiting to see how I'd respond. Would I shout? Storm out? Laugh it off like a fool, letting her win once again? I did none of those things. I took a steady breath, straightened my posture, and gently placed the napkin on the table. Without a word, I stood up, adjusted my wine-soaked shirt, and walked away. The floor seemed to stretch endlessly beneath my feet as I made my way to the exit, whispers and snickers trailing behind me. I could still hear Carla laughing, probably tossing another cutting remark after me. But I didn't care. By the time I reached my car, my hands were steady, no trembling, no hesitation. I slid into the driver's seat, letting the heavy silence envelop me. The scent of wine still clung to me, sharp and sour, but it wasn't just the wine I smelled. It was the end. Not just the end of this miserable night. Not just the end of this particular humiliation. The end of everything. As I pulled out of the parking lot, driving on autopilot, my mind replayed the last few months, no, the last few years with chilling clarity. The sarcastic jokes that cut deeper than she realized, the constant dismissals, the way she treated me as little more than furniture in our shared life. It had crept into our marriage like rust, slow, steady, corrosive, and I had let it. But tonight, something inside me finally broke free. Tonight was different. I wasn't going to wake up tomorrow and pretend none of it had happened. I wasn't going to let Carla sweet-talk her way out of it, or buy me some meaningless apology gift to paper over the cracks. I wasn't going to let myself believe, even for a second, that I had to endure this any longer. By the time I pulled into the driveway, my mind was made up. This wasn't just another cruel jab. This was the final straw. I stepped inside, locking the door behind me. The familiar scent of our house, a house that had long since stopped feeling like mine, filled my lungs. I walked past the framed wedding photos, past the designer furniture Carla had insisted on, past the curated life she had built on the back of my silence. I sat down at the kitchen table, facing the dark, black screen of my laptop. My faint reflection stared back at me, a man I barely recognized. That was about to change. I opened the laptop, pulled a notepad from the drawer, and clicked my pen open with a soft, deliberate snap. Then I began to write not a letter, not a bitter tirade, a list. A list of every slight, every insult, every humiliation Carla had ever inflicted. Dates, words, moments. All the times I had swallowed my pride just to keep the peace. The memories poured out, faster than I expected, things I thought I had forced myself to forget, but had only ever buried. I chronicled the slow death of our marriage, the way she had made me feel like a stranger in my own home. The pen moved easily across the paper, almost too easily. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about hurting her. It was about finally seeing things clearly, because for too long, I had lied to myself. Told myself I was overreacting. That maybe she didn't mean it. That maybe it was just who Carla was. But staring down at the list, watching the pages fill with the proof I could no longer deny, I knew the truth. It was never me. It had always been her. And it was over. Carla didn't come home right away. I hadn't expected her to. She loved the attention too much to leave early, especially after putting on a show like that. I could imagine her, basking in the laughter, replaying the moment the wine hit my face, reveling in her audience. I sat alone at the kitchen table, fingers drumming lightly on the wood. The house was oppressively silent. It hadn't always been like this. Once, there had been warmth here, quiet conversations stretched late into the night, shared laughter over simple things. But that was years ago. Now, the silence pressed in from all sides. I glanced down at the notepad. The list had grown even longer. Every line was a scar I had tried to pretend didn't exist, a wound I had ignored for far too long. Carla's cruelty hadn't started with public humiliation. It had begun quietly, a little jab here, a sarcastic comment there. At first, I had laughed them off. But over time, the words sharpened. They became crueler, laced with an edge that couldn't be mistaken. Don't bother helping, you'll just mess it up. So you fixed something? That's funny. Oh God, you're so embarrassing. Each insult chipped away at me, bit by bit, like slow erosion, until one day, I couldn't even recognize the man staring back at me. Tonight was just the final confirmation of what I had been denying for far too long. Carla didn't respect me. She didn't love me, maybe she never had. I leaned back in the chair, rubbing a hand over my face. The scent of wine still clung stubbornly to my skin. I needed a shower, but I couldn't bring myself to move. The front door creaked open. Her footsteps were light, almost cautious, as she stepped inside. I knew her too well not to notice the shift in her energy. She was expecting me to be upstairs, licking my wounds like a kicked dog, not sitting here, waiting. When she entered the kitchen and saw me at the table, her expression faltered just for a second. She masked it quickly, but I caught it, a flicker of unease. She tilted her head, forcing a smirk. Oh, come on. You're not still upset about that, are you? I didn't answer. She let out a loud, theatrical sigh, tossing her purse onto the counter. Seriously, it was a joke. Everyone was laughing. You always take things so personally. Still, I said nothing. That's when she actually looked at me, really looked, and for the first time, her smirk wavered. What's that? She asked, squinting at the notepad in my hand. I flipped it closed and set it aside. A list, I said. Her brows drew together. A list of what? I met her gaze squarely. Everything you've ever done to me. Silence. For the first time in a very long time, Carla didn't have a quick comeback. No biting remark. No dismissive wave of her hand. She gave a short, nervous laugh. Oh, please, she scoffed, crossing her arms. Don't be so dramatic. I didn't look away. Her amusement faded, inch by inch. You're serious? She asked, voice tightening. I nodded. Something flickered across her face. Not guilt. Carla never felt guilt. It was something closer to irritation, maybe even fear. She didn't like this, the idea that I hadn't forgotten, hadn't brushed it off. Because for years, that's what she had counted on. But I don't know what you think you're doing, she said, her tone sharpening. I'm not in the mood for your little pity party. I leaned forward, resting my forearms on the table. You humiliated me tonight. She rolled her eyes. Oh my God, it was a joke. You call me an idiot. You act like one. I inhaled slowly. You threw wine in my face, I said. She scoffed. You deserved it. And there it was, not regret, not even a hollow apology, just pure justification. Carla had never seen me as an equal. To her, I was a background character in her world, an accessory to parade or to ridicule, depending on her mood. I pushed my chair back and stood. This was the last time, I said. Her brow furrowed. The last time for what? The last time you'll ever humiliate me. She let out a laugh, but there was a sharp edge to it now. Oh please, what are you going to do, run away? Go cry somewhere? I smiled, not the smile she was used to, not the kind she could mock. No, I said quietly. I'm going to make sure you never get the chance to do it again. I grabbed my notepad, my laptop, and turned to leave the kitchen. Carla stood frozen for a moment before snapping after me. Oh, so now you're just going to storm off like some victim? Grow up. I didn't stop. She hated this, hated not having control of the situation. Carla thrived on keeping the upper hand, on knowing exactly which buttons to push. But tonight, she had lost that control. And for the first time in years, I felt it. I climbed the stairs, entered the bedroom, and locked the door behind me. Almost immediately, Carla banged on it. Are you serious? You're locking me out? I stayed silent. Fine. Fine. Be childish. Sleep in there alone, she spat. I heard her stomp down the hallway, snatching a pillow and blanket from the closet. She would be spending the night fuming in the guest room. I climbed into bed and stared up at the ceiling. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sad. I was just done. Morning came, and the house was quiet, but not with the comforting kind of silence. It was thick, heavy, loaded with everything we hadn't said. Carla hadn't returned to the bedroom. She had spent the night stewing alone. I hadn't slept much either, but I wasn't exhausted. I was running on something stronger, clarity. I moved through the kitchen, brewed a cup of coffee, the rich aroma curling into the air. I sat at the table, laptop open, notepad beside me, the list staring back. I read through it again, not because I needed to remember, but because I needed to be absolutely sure. Every word, every date, every slight was a reminder. This wasn't salvageable. I heard Carla's footsteps before I saw her. She always walked with that deliberate, commanding stride, like even the way she moved was a performance. This morning she was barefoot, but the attitude was still there. She stopped at the doorway, arms crossed. "So, are you done sulking?" she said. I didn't look up. I took a sip of coffee. "Morning, Carla," she scoffed, stepping further into the kitchen. "Oh, we're being civil now? What happened to all that dramatic brooding last night?" I glanced up at her. "I wasn't brooding." She smirked, but there was tension behind it. A nervous crack in her usual armor. "Right," she said mockingly. "You were making a list. God, I hope you realize how pathetic that is." I said nothing, just watched her. The silence seemed to make her more uncomfortable than any words could have. Carla hated silence unless she was the one commanding it. She fed off reactions, off narratives she could spin. She grabbed the fridge door, pulled out a bottle of orange juice, and poured herself a glass. "So what's the plan here?" she said, leaning against the counter. "Are you expecting me to grovel? Beg for your forgiveness?" I closed the laptop slowly. "I know," I said. She sipped her juice, raising an eyebrow. "Then what do you want?" I pulled out my phone and unlocked it. Her gaze followed my movements, still casual, still dismissive, waiting for something she could laugh off. Instead, I hit play. Her voice filled the kitchen, sharp and unmistakable. "Why are you always acting like such an idiot?" Laughter echoed from the recording, the clinking of glasses, the background hum of the restaurant capturing the full weight of the moment. Carla froze. The video kept playing, the camera angle shifting slightly. It was obvious someone at the table had recorded it, someone who hadn't found it as funny as she had. When the video ended, I set my phone down. Carla let out a short laugh, but it was hollow, her eyes betraying her. "Who the hell recorded that?" she demanded, her jaw tightening. "Which one?" I leaned back in my chair. "Does it matter?" She crossed her arms again, but it wasn't the defiant pose I was used to this time, it was defensive. "So what? You're holding onto some video like a bitter ex-girlfriend? Planning to do something with it?" She snapped. I didn't answer. She let out a sharp breath, shaking her head. "Jesus, you're unbelievable. Acting like I committed some crime. It was a joke." I tilted my head slightly. "Did it look like a joke to you?" She rolled her eyes. "Oh, come on. People laugh at each other all the time. Don't be so sensitive. People laugh with each other, Carla." "Not at them," I said calmly. She scoffed, but there was a flicker of something else in her expression, something I'd seen before, fear. Not fear that I would hurt her. Carla never feared me like that. It was fear of losing control. Fear of the one thing she prized most slipping from her grip. "Delete it," she said abruptly. I smirked. "Why? I thought it was just a harmless joke." Her lips pressed into a hard line. I let the silence stretch between us, thick and deliberate. "Seriously," she said, her voice dropping. "Delete it." I took another sip of coffee. "No." Her nostrils flared. "You're acting like a child." I shrugged casually. "Maybe, but you're acting like someone who's suddenly very worried about a harmless joke." Her jaw clenched. She looked away, rubbing her fingers along the rim of her glass. "I swear to God, if you try to embarrass me with that video." I set my coffee cup down with a quiet clink. "You'll what?" She snapped her mouth shut, biting back whatever threat had been forming. And just like that, the balance shifted. For years, Carla had held all the power, dictating how our marriage looked, how people perceived us, even how I saw myself. She had spun a story where she was the strong, charismatic wife, and I was the weak, lucky husband barely worthy of her attention. But now she was the one scrambling. I leaned forward, elbows resting on the table. "Hey, you've spent years making me feel small, Carla. Tearing me down in front of friends, co-workers, even total strangers. And every time, I let it go. Every time, I told myself it wasn't worth the fight, that I loved you too much to make it a big deal." Her eyes flickered, but she stayed silent. "But last night," I continued, voice steady, "I realized something. I realized you don't love me, Carla. You love control. You love having someone to belittle, someone to prop yourself up against." "That's not," she started, but I raised a hand, cutting her off. "Don't," I said firmly. "Don't insult me by pretending otherwise." She swallowed hard. I leaned back again, studying her carefully. "I'm not going to post the video, if that's what you're worried about. I'm not petty, but I am done pretending." She hesitated. What does that mean?" I exhaled slowly. "It means things are going to change." Carla wasn't used to this. Wasn't used to me standing my ground, refusing to play the part she had written for me. She tried to cover her unease with indifference, but I could see right through her. "Fine," she muttered, pushing off the counter. "You want to play this little game? Be my guest." She spun on her heel and stormed out of the kitchen. I didn't move. I didn't need to. Because for the first time in our marriage, Carla was the one walking away uncertain. I listened to her heavy footsteps pounding up the stairs, each one pulsing with frustration. She expected me to follow, to chase after her. to plead for a conversation, to beg for an apology that would never come. That's how it had always been. She would cross a line. I'd call her out. She'd deflect, and I'd be the one smoothing things over. Again and again. But not this time. This time, I stayed exactly where I was. I picked up my coffee, took a slow sip, and let the silence settle thick around me. Carla still thought she was in control. She had no idea just how much ground she had already lost. While she was out last night, busy humiliating me, I had been busy too. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. The numbers stared back at me right where I left them. Half of our shared savings, securely in my own account. Legally mine. Carla had always managed the finances not because I couldn't, but because she wanted to. She liked knowing exactly where the money went, how much was spent, and more importantly, how much power she could hold over me. She controlled the credit cards, the accounts, the bills, keeping me just comfortable enough to stay put, but never independent enough to walk away. Last night changed that. I had transferred my half, cut off her access to my credit card, frozen the joint account. If Carla wanted money now, she'd have to rely on her own savings. I locked my phone and set it aside. She'd figure it out soon enough. Turning back to my laptop, I glanced over the emails I had already drafted to my lawyer. Nothing official yet, just early conversations. But the course was set. This marriage was over. Because I was done. Done being her punching bag. Done being the man she mocked in front of her friends. Done needing her approval to feel like I mattered. A sharp thud echoed from upstairs. A door slammed. Maybe a drawer yanked open. Carla was angry. Good. Let her be. She had built this marriage on the assumption that I would always stay. That no matter how cruel she became, I'd tolerate the cold remarks, the disdainful glances, the way she treated me like an afterthought instead of a partner. But now the ground was shifting under her feet, and the panic was setting in. I didn't have to wait long. Minutes later, Carla came stomping back down the stairs, her face schooled into careful indifference, but her eyes burning with frustration. She clutched her phone tightly in one hand. I didn't look up immediately. I let her stand there, shifting her weight, growing more impatient with each second. Finally, I glanced up, calm as ever. Something wrong? I asked. She let out a short, hollow laugh. You think you're clever, don't you? I arched an eyebrow. I don't know what you mean. She lifted her phone slightly, her grip tight. My card got declined. I took another sip of my coffee, unbothered. That's unfortunate. Her jaw clenched. Cut the crap. What did you do? I set my mug down and leaned back in my chair. I secured my finances. Her nostrils flared. Our finances, she snapped. I tilted my head slightly. No, Carla. My finances. I took my half. The rest is still there for you. She scoffed, running a frustrated hand through her hair. You think you can just do that? Just take half like you're entitled to it? I exhaled slowly, drumming my fingers lightly against the table. You mean the same way you've been using our money for vacations with your friends, buying things you never told me about, throwing those expensive dinner parties where I'm just the joke of the evening? She rolled her eyes. Oh my God, you're still hung up on that. It was one night. I shook my head. No, Carla. It wasn't. It was years of the same treatment, the same disrespect, the same humiliation. She stared at me, her lips pressed into a hard, thin line. So what? She snapped. You're just going to punish me? Make me suffer because your little ego got bruised? I smiled calmly. Oh no, I'm just done letting you dictate my life. Carla crossed her arms tightly over her chest. Oh, and now you're the hero in this little story? Grow up. I shrugged. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just finally standing up for myself. There was something flickering behind her eyes now, hesitation, uncertainty. She didn't like this. She wasn't used to me not crumbling, not second-guessing myself, not letting her turn the blame back on me. But not this time. She exhaled sharply. So what now? I studied her carefully before answering. Now, I start planning my future without you in it. She let out a bitter laugh, quick and sharp. Oh, please. You wouldn't last a week without me. I smirked. That's what you'd like to believe. Her phone buzzed in her hand, and she glanced down. I watched her face shift tension, then something close to panic. More messages. The fallout was beginning. It wasn't just about the money anymore. That video, it had started spreading. And once these things spread, there was no stopping them. Carla had always been the golden girl, the one everyone admired, envied, worshipped. But now they were starting to see the cracks. I saw it in the way her shoulders stiffened. She had read something that rattled her. She looked back at me, something calculating in her gaze. You're really doing this? She asked. I nodded. I am. She inhaled sharply through her nose, her jaw tight, her mind racing behind her eyes, desperate for a new angle, a way to spin this back in her favor. But it was too late. She just didn't realize it yet. Without another word, Carla turned and walked away. I let her go. She could plot, she could scheme, she could spin whatever version she wanted, it didn't matter. Because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't playing her game anymore. The next morning, Carla acted as if nothing had happened. I expected this. It was part of her strategy, pretend the problem didn't exist until she could find a way to twist it back in her favor. She sat at the breakfast bar, sipping her coffee, scrolling through her phone, looking as composed as ever. But I wasn't fooled. I saw the tension in her shoulders, the tightness in her grip, the way she carefully avoided looking at me. I didn't say anything as I poured myself a cup of coffee and took a seat across from her. The silence between us was thick, heavy-charged. She wanted me to speak first, to crack under the weight of it, so she could steer the conversation back into her control. I didn't give her the satisfaction. Instead, I sipped my coffee, opened my laptop, and casually started checking my emails. She lasted all of 5 minutes before she snapped. "What the hell did you do?" I didn't even glance up. "You'll have to be more specific." Her jaw tightened. "Don't play dumb with me. My bank account's frozen, my card's still declining." She waved her phone sharply. "And this video is everywhere." I closed my laptop slowly and finally met her gaze. "Oh." Her eyes narrowed into slits. "You knew this would happen." I leaned back in my chair, calm. "No, Carla. You did this. I didn't tell you to humiliate me in public. I didn't make you throw wine in my face. I didn't even record the video one of your friends did. And apparently, the rest of the world doesn't find it as funny as you thought they would." Her lips thinned into a hard line. "You should have deleted it." I arched an eyebrow. "Why? It was just a joke, right?" Her fingers curled tighter around her phone. "Oh my God, you're pathetic," she spat. "You're actually acting like a victim." I smirked. Because I was. She stood up, abruptly pacing the kitchen like a caged animal. "Do you have any idea what you've done? My clients are seeing this. My boss saw it. I got an email this morning, they want to have a meeting," she said, voice thick with panic. "They think this makes me look unprofessional." I tilted my head slightly. "Huh, imagine that." Her glare was cold enough to freeze fire. "You're enjoying this," she accused. I took another slow sip of coffee, keeping my voice steady. "I'm enjoying watching you deal with the consequences of your own choices." She let out a sharp, humorless laugh. "And what you think you're winning? What's your plan, huh? Destroy my reputation, take half the money, and run? You really think you're the one coming out on top?" I sighed and shook my head. "Carla, this isn't about winning. It's about finally standing up for myself." She scoffed, rolling her eyes. "Oh, please. You think you're some kind of martyr? You're still the same pathetic man you've always been. A few financial moves and a viral video don't make you strong." I stood up slowly, pushing my chair back with deliberate calm. "Oh no, Carla. What makes me strong is realizing I don't need you." She froze. For years, she had built her world around the belief that I needed her validation, her approval, her presence. She thought no matter what she said or did, I would always be there. She was wrong. I grabbed my laptop, my phone, and my coffee. "I have work to do," I said simply. She blinked, clearly not expecting me to just walk away. But I did. I left her standing there alone, rattled, and rapidly losing the only thing she ever truly valued: control. I closed the door to my office behind me and didn't look back. I sat at my desk, exhaling slowly. My hands were steady. My breathing was even. For the first time in years, I felt completely in control. I wasn't sure how long I had been working when I heard Carla's voice from down the hall. Sharp, frustrated, teetering on the edge. "I don't care how it happened, just fix it." She snapped into the phone. A pause. "No, I don't know who sent it to them, but I need it taken down." She was scrambling. I smirked to myself. She wasn't used to this, wasn't used to people seeing the real her. I kept working, letting her deal with the mess she had made. Eventually, she came knocking. I didn't look up. "Busy," I said flatly. She pushed the door open anyway. "We need to talk," she said. I sighed and closed my laptop. "About what?" She hesitated, crossing her arms tightly across her chest. "You need to help me fix this." I blinked, then actually laughed. She scowled. "I'm serious," she said, her voice taut. I shook my head slowly. "No, Carla. You don't get it. I don't have to help you. I'm not your fixer. I'm not your PR team. You did this to yourself." Her nostrils flared. "Do you have any idea what this could cost me?" I stood, meeting her glare without flinching. "And do you have any idea what you've cost me?" I said quietly. "My self-respect. My dignity. My sanity." She clenched her jaw so tightly I thought it might crack. "This is ridiculous," she muttered. I shrugged. "Maybe, but it's not my problem anymore." She stared at me, something flickering behind her eyes, something small, something almost like fear. Not fear of me, fear of losing. Because for the first time, she realized she wasn't in control. I glanced down at my phone, checking the time. Sighed. "I have a meeting in 20 minutes, I said. "Anything else you need?" Her mouth opened slightly, like she wanted to say something, but no words came out. Instead, she turned and walked away. I exhaled slowly, gripping the edge of my desk. It was happening. The shift. The power she had held over me for years was slipping right through her fingers, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. The best part was, I didn't even have to lift a finger. She was unraveling all on her own. Carla spent most of the day on the phone, trying to patch up the damage. But the video had spread faster and wider than she anticipated, and no amount of frantic phone calls could erase the stain now tarnishing her carefully crafted image. I sat in the living room, watching her pace back and forth, her phone pressed tight against her ear. "What do you mean it's still up?" she hissed. "I thought you said you could get it taken down." A tense pause. Her fingers curled tightly into her palm. "I know how the internet works, but there has to be something else we can do." She stopped mid-sentence, her back going rigid. Her head turned slightly, and her eyes locked onto mine. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just watched her. The silence stretched between us, thick and heavy. She ended the call with a sharp motion and tossed her phone onto the couch. "Are you enjoying this?" she asked. I leaned back against the cushions, utterly calm. "Enjoying what?" She scoffed bitterly. "Watching me deal with all this." I took a sip of my drink and said, "I don't have to watch you deal with anything, Carla. You brought this on yourself." Her hands balled into fists. "You could have deleted the video." I arched an eyebrow. "And you could have refrained from throwing wine in my face and humiliating me in front of your friends. Actions have consequences." She shook her head, pacing again. "It's not just about you. You know this is affecting my career. My boss is putting me on leave while they assess my behavior. My clients are distancing themselves." She stopped, looking at me, her lips curling with frustration. "But I bet you love that, don't you?" I set my drink down. "No, Carla. I don't love watching your life fall apart. But I do think it's poetic justice that you're finally experiencing what it's like to be dismissed, judged, and disrespected." Her nostrils flared. "This is so typical of you playing the victim, pretending you were this helpless little puppy in our marriage. I took care of everything. I built this life, and you." I interrupted her, my voice steady. "You controlled everything. You dictated every decision, every expense, every move we made. You never saw me as an equal, Carla. You saw me as an accessory." She opened her mouth to argue but stopped, knowing I was right. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't deny it. Instead, she folded her arms and exhaled sharply. "So what now? You just punish me?" she asked. I shook my head. "I'm not punishing you, Carla. I'm just done letting you punish me." Her lips parted, as if she wanted to say something, but she hesitated. That hesitation was new. Carla never hesitated. She always had an answer, always a counterattack. But now, she was losing, and she knew it. She turned away, grabbing her phone again and scrolling furiously, looking for any last shred of control. I let her. At this point, nothing she did could change what was coming. I checked the time. "I have a meeting soon." She didn't look up. "Of course you do," she muttered. I stood up, walking past her and pausing only when I reached the door. "By the way, you might want to check your email." That made her head snap up, but I left before she could say anything. I sat in my office, letting everything settle. The email I'd mentioned, the one she was about to open, was from my lawyer. It wasn't official yet, but the process had begun. I wasn't just leaving Carla emotionally. I was leaving her legally. I could already picture the way her face would drop when she saw it, the realization, the full weight of what she had done finally hitting her. I didn't feel guilty, not in the slightest. She had spent years treating me like I was disposable, like I needed her more than she needed me. She was about to find out just how wrong she was. I didn't have to wait long. Carla's reaction came just as I expected. Barely 15 minutes after I left her in the living room, I heard the sharp sound of her phone slamming against the counter. Then came the stomping, heavy, deliberate, filled with barely contained rage. She didn't knock on my office door. Carla didn't knock for anything. She pushed the door open, standing in the doorway with her arms crossed, her face a mask of unreadable emotion. I didn't look up right away. I kept my attention fixed on my laptop, as if I hadn't heard the door open, as if I couldn't feel the storm gathering in the room. Finally, she spoke. "You're divorcing me?" Her voice wasn't loud. It wasn't a scream like I'd expected, but there was something beneath it, something sharp and dangerous, like a blade hidden beneath silk. I typed one more word on my document, hit save, and closed my laptop before looking up. "Yes." Her hands balled into fists at her sides. "Just like that?" She took a step forward, her eyes narrowing. I leaned back in my chair, meeting her gaze evenly. "Oh no, Carla. Not just like that. This has been a long time coming." She let out a bitter laugh. "Come on. This is over a stupid dinner party? Over a little bit of spilled wine? You're really throwing away our marriage over that?" I shook my head slowly. "Oh no, Carla. I'm throwing away our marriage because I don't want it anymore." That hit her hard. Her lips parted slightly, her body going rigid. She'd been ready to argue, to manipulate, to twist the situation into something small and petty, but she wasn't prepared for that. She stepped forward slowly, her arms loosening slightly. "You're serious?" she asked. I nodded. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. She blinked, as if trying to process it. But then, just like that, the mask was back on. She scoffed, crossing her arms again. Fine. You want a divorce, go ahead. But don't think you're going to walk away with anything. I smirked. Carla, I already did. Her jaw clenched. Oh, excuse me? I picked up my phone, scrolled through my banking app, and turned the screen toward her. She went pale. Son of a... She stopped when I raised a hand. One careful step, I said calmly. Remember, everything you say can be used against you in court. Her nostrils flared, but she didn't take the bait. Instead, she turned on her heel, pacing the room. Oh, think you're smart, she muttered. Oh, think you've won. I sighed, rubbing my temple. Carla, this isn't a game. She let out a dry laugh. Oh, it is. And you just changed the rules. I watched her carefully. Carla was calculating now. That meant she was shifting her strategy. She wasn't going to throw things or scream too emotional, too easy. She was going to try and control the narrative. I'll contest it, she said, her voice smoother now. You think this will be simple? That I'll just sign the papers and disappear? Oh no. We built this life together, and I'm going to make sure you pay for this decision. I shrugged. Oh, you can contest all you want. It won't change anything. She narrowed her eyes. You really think you have the upper hand? I smiled. For the first time in this marriage, I do. She stared at me, studying me, searching for something she could use. Then, she did something I hadn't expected. She softened. Her arms uncrossed, her lips parted slightly, and she stepped closer. Do you really want to do this? She asked, her voice quieter now. I tilted my head. Yes. She exhaled, rubbing a hand over her face. Oh, look, maybe we got carried away. Maybe things got bad. But we've been together a long time. We have history. I leaned back in my chair. History isn't a reason to stay in something that makes you miserable. She hesitated. You're really miserable? I nodded. You've made sure of it. She looked away, and for a moment, I thought I saw something close to regret in her eyes. But with Carla, I could never tell if it was real or just another performance. Finally, she sighed. What if we tried? I raised an eyebrow. Tried? She shrugged, forcing a small smile. To fix this. I mean, come on, we've been through worse, haven't we? I let the silence stretch between us before speaking. What's the real reason, Carla? Her brow furrowed. What? I stood up slowly, walking toward her. Why do you suddenly want to fix things? Is it because you miss me? Because you want our marriage to work? She said nothing. I took another step forward. Or is it because you're afraid of what happens when you don't have me around anymore? Her lips pressed into a thin line. There it was. I exhaled, stepping back. That's what I thought. She scoffed. Oh, don't flatter yourself. I smirked. I don't need to. The truth is already doing that for me. She turned, gripping the door frame. You'll regret this. I picked up my phone again. I doubt it. She stormed out, and I let her go because deep down, I knew she had already lost. That night, Carla didn't sleep in our bedroom. She didn't even try. I heard her moving around in the guest room, shuffling through drawers, opening and closing cabinets, just enough noise to remind me she was still there, that she wasn't going anywhere. Quietly, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the distant hum of the city outside. A part of me expected to feel something: regret, hesitation, maybe even nostalgia. But there was nothing. No sadness, no longing. Just relief. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could finally breathe. I turned over, closed my eyes, and let the exhaustion take me. Morning came quickly, and the scent of coffee drifted through the air. But it wasn't the usual warm, comforting aroma that filled our home. It was sharp, deliberate, like Carla was making it just for herself. I found her in the kitchen, sitting at the counter, her phone in one hand, a steaming mug in the other. She looked up when I walked in. For a moment, there was silence. Then she set her mug down and exhaled. So that's it? She asked. I poured myself a cup of coffee, taking my time. What's it? She let out a humorless laugh. You're really just walking away from all of this? I leaned against the counter, meeting her gaze. Oh, I walked away a long time ago, Carla. You just didn't notice. Her lips pressed into a thin line. That's ridiculous. Is it? I tilted my head. Because I think it's the most honest thing I've said in years. She shook her head, taking a slow sip of her drink. Oh, you don't get it. You don't just leave. It doesn't work like that. I sighed, setting my mug down. Carla, we both know this marriage hasn't been a marriage for a long time. You don't respect me. You don't even like me. She flinched, just slightly, but enough for me to notice. I continued. She liked having me around because it was convenient, because I made things easier for her. But let's be honest, if I had walked away years ago, you wouldn't have fought for me. She looked away, her fingers tightening around her mug. I waited, letting the silence linger. She exhaled, rubbing her forehead. You're really going through with this? I nodded. I've already started the process. Her head snapped up. You what? You sent the email to my lawyer yesterday? I simply nodded. It's already in motion. Her eyes darkened. You didn't even talk to me first. I raised an eyebrow. Would it have changed anything? She scoffed. That's not the point. I shrugged. And it kind of is. She stared at me, something unreadable flickering in her gaze. Then she shook her head, a laugh escaping her lips. Unbelievable. I leaned forward slightly. Tell me something, Carla. She rolled her eyes. What? If I hadn't said anything, if I had just kept going the way things were, would you have ever considered fixing our marriage? She hesitated, then looked away. That was all the answer I needed. I exhaled and pushed off the counter. I'll start moving my things into the guest room today. It's only a matter of time before one of us leaves the house, so might as well make things easier. She let out a short laugh. Oh wow, you've really got it all planned out, don't you? I shrugged. I had a lot of time to think about it. Her fingers drummed against the counter. Oh, you're not the man I married. I smirked. You're right. I'm not that guy. I'm done putting up with your crap. Her expression hardened, but I saw something else flicker beneath it, something closer to fear. Not fear of me, or of being alone, but of losing control. For years, she had dictated the terms of our relationship, pulling the strings, making the decisions, controlling how things would play out. But now she was scrambling, and for the first time, she had no idea what to do next. She stood abruptly, pushing her chair back. Fine, do whatever you want. I nodded, finishing my coffee. I will. She turned and walked out of the kitchen. I didn't follow her. I didn't need to. Because no matter what she did, no matter how she tried to twist things, the truth remained the same. This marriage was over. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. The day dragged on, but the tension in the house was impossible to ignore. Carla wasn't speaking to me not out of sadness, but out of calculated anger. She wanted me to feel the weight of her silence, to feel guilty, to second-guess myself. But that wasn't going to happen. I spent most of the morning moving my things into the guest room, not that there was much to move. Over the years, Carla had made sure the house reflected her tastes, not ours. My presence had been reduced to a small space in the closet, a few drawers, and a single shelf in the bathroom. It was strange, packing up my things and realizing just how little of me actually existed in this house. I'd spent years living here, and yet it felt like I was visiting someone else's home. By mid-afternoon, I was nearly finished. My suitcases were stacked in the corner, and my laptop and personal files were neatly organized on the desk. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I was zipping up the last bag when I heard Carla's voice downstairs. It wasn't just her voice, she was on the phone. I stepped closer to the door and listened. No, he's being completely unreasonable, she said, her tone sharp. He thinks he's some kind of victim just because I called him out in front of people. I exhaled slowly, shaking my head. Even now, she refused to take responsibility. There was a pause. Then she continued, her voice growing more frustrated. I don't know what he's planning, but I'm not just going to sit here and let him make me the bad guy. Another pause. Then she let out a bitter laugh. Oh no, he's not smart enough to pull anything drastic, she said. I mean, come on, this is him we're talking about. My fingers tightened around the zipper pull. I had spent years listening to Carla talk about me like that, like I was less, like I couldn't think for myself, like I couldn't exist without her constant input. She had spent our entire marriage believing she was superior, that she was smart, that I needed her. But she was wrong. I stepped away from the door, deciding I'd heard enough. By the time I walked downstairs, Carla was off the phone, standing in the kitchen with her arms crossed. She looked up when she saw me. Are you seriously moving into the guest room? She asked. I nodded. Yeah, she scoffed. Traumatic much? I grabbed a glass from the cabinet and filled it with water. It's called giving us space, Carla. Something we probably should have done a long time ago. She watched me carefully. You think that makes a difference? Sleeping in a different room? You're still here. I set the glass down. Not for long. She went still. I saw the shift in her expression, the realization that I wasn't just doing this to prove a point. I was done. You're serious? She asked. I nodded. Yeah. She let out a sharp breath, shaking her head. So that's it. You're just walking away? I exhaled. Carla, you walked away from this marriage a long time ago. I'm just catching up. Her jaw clenched. So dramatic. I smirked. You keep saying that. Maybe you just don't like the fact that for once, you're not the one in control. Her eyes darkened. Don't flatter yourself. I leaned against the counter, watching her. Why does it bother you so much? She frowned, then said, What, you think I'm leaving? She crossed her arms. Because it's pathetic. You think this is some kind of revenge? You think you're proving something? I shook my head. No, I think I'm finally choosing myself. Her lips parted slightly, as if she wanted to say something, but she didn't. Instead, she turned and grabbed her phone, scrolling through something quickly. Oh, you know you're not going to win, she muttered. I sighed. Carla, this isn't about winning. She smirked, but it didn't reach her eyes. Oh, it is. and you're too naive to see it. I tilted my head. What are you talking about? She held up her phone. I talked to my lawyer. I exhaled slowly. Of course you did. Her smile widened. Surprise. I'm contesting everything. I didn't react. She wanted me to panic, to scramble, to fight. That was how Carla won, by making people lose their cool while she stayed collected. Instead, I simply picked up my glass and took a slow sip. She frowned. Is that all you have to say? I set the glass down. Carla, I don't care what you do. Contest it, fight it, drag it out. It won't change anything. She studied me. Oh, you really think you're untouchable, don't you? I sighed. Oh no, I just don't care enough to play your games anymore. That hit her. For the first time in years, I saw something flicker behind her eyes, something real. Fear. Carla thrived on control, and she was losing it. She turned away, gripping the edge of the counter. You're making a mistake, she muttered. I shrugged. Maybe, but at least it's mine to make. She scoffed, shaking her head. This is ridiculous. I smirked. Oh, funny. I was about to say the same thing to you. Her grip tightened on the counter, but she didn't say anything more. Without another word, she walked away. I didn't stop her because, no matter what she did next, no matter how hard she fought, the outcome would be the same. I was leaving, and this time there was nothing she could do about it. Carla didn't speak to me for the rest of the day, not a single word. At first, I thought it was part of her strategy, her usual method of controlling the situation by making me feel uncomfortable in the silence, like I should be the one apologizing. But as the hours passed, I realized something had changed. This wasn't just her playing mind games anymore. This was something deeper, something real. I saw it in the way she moved through the house. Her posture was a little stiffer, her steps more deliberate. She wasn't stomping, wasn't slamming doors, or making a scene like she normally would when she was angry. No, she was processing. For the first time since this started, Carla wasn't reacting, she was thinking. I went about my evening as usual, making dinner, going through emails, keeping to myself. Every so often, I caught glimpses of her in the hallway or out of the corner of my eye, standing by the window, lost in thought. She was unraveling in a different way now, not with rage, but with realization. She had spent years believing she was the one in control, that no matter what she did, I would always stay, always tolerate, always bend. But now she was seeing the truth. I wasn't bending anymore. I was leaving, and no amount of manipulation, contesting, or power plays would change that. Later that night, I was sitting in the guest room, scrolling through my phone, when there was a soft knock on the door. I knew it was her before I even looked up. For a moment, I debated ignoring it, but something told me this wasn't another one of her games. So, I sighed, set my phone down, and said, "Come in." The door opened slowly, and Carla stepped inside. She wasn't dressed to intimidate like usual, no designer blouse, no perfectly tailored pants. She was in an oversized sweater and leggings, her hair pulled back in a way that made her look smaller, almost unsure. It was the most human I had seen her in years. She hesitated, glancing around the guest room. "So, you're really doing it?" She said nothing for a moment, then swallowed hard. I checked my email. I leaned back against the pillows, watching her carefully, and she let out a soft breath. Her hands twisted together nervously in front of her. "One of you actually filed?" There was something in her voice I couldn't quite place. Was it anger, sadness, or disbelief? It was as if she had never truly imagined this would be the way things ended. "I told you I would," I replied simply. She nodded, looking down at the floor. "Yeah, I didn't think." She trailed off, shaking her head slightly, as if even she couldn't finish the sentence. I waited. She took a slow breath and finally met my eyes. "I don't want this." I sighed. "Carla." "No, just listen," she interrupted, stepping closer. "I know I've been." She stopped, pressing her lips together. "I know I've made mistakes. I know I haven't always treated you fairly." I arched an eyebrow. "That's an understatement." Her jaw tightened, but she nodded. "Yeah, maybe it is." She glanced at the bed, then back at me. "Can I sit?" I gestured to the chair across from me. She let out a small, humorless laugh, but didn't argue. Instead, she sat down, folding her hands in her lap. A few moments of silence passed before she spoke again. "I don't know when things got this bad." I let out a slow breath. "I do." She looked up at me. I held her gaze. "It wasn't just one thing, Carla. It was everything: the way you spoke to me, the way you dismissed me, the way you made me feel like I was nothing in my own home." Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. "Oh, I didn't mean to." "Yes, you did," I cut in. "You didn't mean to, Carla. You liked making me feel small. It made you feel bigger." She flinched, but I didn't let up. "For years, I told myself it was just your personality, that you didn't mean the things you said, that if I just tried harder, maybe you'd respect me, maybe you'd see me." I shook my head. "You never did, and you never would." She inhaled shakily, her hands gripping the fabric of her leggings. "I don't want you to go." I sighed, running a hand down my face. Carla. Please, she said softly. It was the first time she had ever said that word to me, and it almost worked almost. I studied her, really studied her for the first time. She looked lost, but I couldn't let that change my decision. This wasn't about Carla anymore. This was about me. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. Carla, do you actually want me, or do you just not want to lose? Her eyes widened slightly, as if the question had never even occurred to her. That told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't fighting for me. She was fighting for the control she was losing. She was fighting because she hated the idea of being left, but not because she loved me. I sighed, standing up. I think you should go back to your room. She stared at me. That's it. I nodded. Yeah. She looked down, her lips pressing together, her body tense. For a moment, I thought she might try again, say something else, try to pull another card, another angle. But instead, she just nodded. Then, without another word, she stood and walked toward the door. She paused in the doorway, gripping the frame for just a second. Then, she glanced back at me. I'm sorry, she murmured. I exhaled slowly. Well, I hope one day you mean that. She flinched, then left. I didn't follow. I sat back down on the bed, rubbing a hand over my face. It was over for real this time. No more second-guessing. No more wondering if I was making the right choice. I was done, and for the first time in years, I felt free. I picked up my phone and stared at the screen for a moment. Then, I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I smiled. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.